So you were brought over to Sci-Fi Channel for a 6th and final season. And now season 7 is coming about. And what are we going to do? We have more stories to produce now.
Yes, exactly. And one of the ways that Robert Cooper, who was a showrunner at the time, sought to, keep things alive, if you will, is by bringing back the character of Daniel Jackson. Specifically because Richard Dean Anderson was looking to sort of lessen his time on the show. So it just kind of made sense to bring back a familiar face.
So did you guys approach Michael?
Yeah, that was all Rob. He actually called Michael up and they had a conversation and discussed. And in the end, they came together with, an agreement and Daniel came back for season 7.
What do you think SG-1 would have been like had it continued without Daniel and Corin stayed on? Because I'm assuming Corin would have been willing to stay on for a season 7.
I would assume, yeah. I really liked working with Corin. I still like Corin very much. So I was kind of sorry to see him go. It's really kind of hard to imagine how the show would have progressed, because I was thinking about it the other day and the fact that, those Daniel stories just became such an integral part of those later seasons, the relationship with Vala. And then I think about Atlantis and the fact that, he's in, you did a couple of the crossover episodes and obviously it was a story that was kind of very near and dear to that character. So, it's really hard to imagine what it would have been like without him in those later seasons.
I would have been interested to see a show that had, I suppose it's a writing bandwidth thing. It's a money thing. It's a how many people can you fit into the shot frame, because it's one of the things that Brad always talked about, is it's 16:9, it's pretty conducive to fitting 4 people into a frame, then you guys expanded to 5 with Vala. It would have been really interesting to see a show that had Corin and Michael both on it, you know? But they really the advantage of Vala was she occupied a space that she created, that Claudia and you guys created together that really wasn't there before, kind of a rogue element that Corin and Michael would have overlapped.
Yeah, that was the issue in the end. And the fact that even though the characters were very different, they essentially played the same role within the team. Yeah.
The role that particular part, I think, cannot be overstated. And I think it's one of the things that, I think, if I may be perfectly honest, was sometimes lacking on Atlantis, kind of that moral voice. I know Weir was that voice, but she was often on Atlantis, and not a part of the team itself that was making the calls at that moment.
Yeah, that's true.
Very different dynamic. So season 7, we are upping the ante with Anubis. You have to kind of put him into a place where he's escalating his power. Tell us about building out that season, and when during the season was the discussion for a spinoff really coming into play, where you had to really start dealing with that in that writer's room as well, in terms of strategically moving the pieces around?
So what year did Atlantis premiere?
2004.
2004. So that's next year with season 8. Yeah.
Season 8.
So yeah, we were picked up for a 7th and presumably final season. So we broke season 7 with the mind to really building towards that, showdown with Anubis, building up Anubis, building towards that showdown and tying up all the loose ends, or as much as possible. given the fact that we had, already like 250, so 200 episodes under our belt, maybe less.
Maybe less.
And then of course, late in the game, we discovered that we were actually coming back for an 8th season, and I'm not sure who. That was probably the network's call to, create that Sci-Fi Friday time slot where have SG-1 as a lead-in, and hand off to Atlantis. And I think the plan was to do that for a season and obviously make SG-1's 8th season its last. But we'll get to that in time.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I mean, really, at that point, it was like full focus on season 7 for us, while Brad and Robert, behind the scenes were, feverishly working, spinning ideas for the Atlantis spinoff.
Okay, so you kept your head down with SG-1. The show was also really beginning to build momentum in its popularity. I mean, it's not like you guys were not known when it was on Showtime, but when it came to Sci-Fi Channel, it just started to explode. I mean, that was the season that got the TV Guide cover, season 7. What was it? I suppose, if it's because you kept on working, it was just another season for you. You had plenty of stuff to keep you busy, but was there any kind of a notice or a recognition at the time that you can recall that the series was beginning to pick up momentum in terms of viewership and interest and broader acceptance into the mainstream?
To be honest with you, we were on the inside and to a certain degree insulated from all that. We were just so focused on writing scripts.
Okay.
But I mean, I spent a fair amount of time online, and I was already aware of the passionate fan base. And now that you mention it, the TV Guide cover was a pretty big deal back then. And the numbers kept on going up. We kept on building, which was great. So, when you're in a situation like that, it's hard to think of ending, of things waning.
That's true.
You just think you're creating obviously a product that audiences respond to, and hopefully those audiences will tell their friends, and things will continue to build.
When you picked up your first story for this season, the episode where we lose Jonas, where he goes back to his home planet, where we kind of resolve the second half of the opening arc of that season, it was Homecoming. Tell us about bringing Anubis to Kelowna and, finding a way to get Jonas in a situation where he can sacrifice himself for Daniel and for his people so that they welcome him back.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I had a lot of respect for Corin, a lot of respect for the character. And I guess more than anything, I wanted to leave the door open for a possible revisit or return, and then have the character go out on his own terms. But like I said, rather than kill him off, have him sacrifice in another way. And so basically he makes the sacrifice for his people and ends up conveniently leaving, I want to say like a spot for Daniel, but certainly, I mean, it was not lost on the audiences that with Daniel's return, Jonas's position in the team became somewhat tenuous, I guess.
Right. Someone else would have to feed Jonas's fish.
Right.
So, and I can't ignore the fervent fan response, that kind of stirred up after Michael left, and that was going to be I guess tempered now that they were basically a lot of like the Save Daniel Jackson camp was basically getting what they wanted. You know, they were going to get Daniel back, and those guys to this day take the credit for that.
Yeah, well, to be honest with you, I mean, you know, the decision was Rob's purely because of Rick's Rick's, I won't say reluctance to continue committing to a full schedule, but in essence, that was it. And Rob said, well, you know, you remember him talking to me in the office, thinking of bringing Michael back. And I love Michael, but I was like, you know, I personally couldn't stand those Save Daniel Jackson fans. I was like, you know, you do realize that if you do this, they'll think that it's because of them. And that for me was a reason not to do it.
Don't give the dog the bone.
Yes, exactly. But Rob was like, no, you know, it just makes sense. You know, overall it's good for the show. And I was like, well, you know, he was a showrunner, so I defer to him.
Daniel had a huge fan base. There was no denying that. Thanks for watching this clip from Dial the Gate. You can find the full live stream shows on our YouTube channel or visit dialthegate.com for the complete schedule. See you on the other side.